Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the studentloanjustice.org live stream for May 31st, 2023, last day of May. Welcome. If you're new to the group in particular, we're glad that you found us. We are studentloanjustice.org. We're the oldest, largest, first, and only true grassroots group fighting only and absolutely for student loan justice. That means two things. Most importantly, it means the return of constitutional bankruptcy rights to student loans. Number two, and this is maybe the thing that's on most people's mind these days, the cancellation of all federally owned student loans by executive order. That concept started on this group, by the way, the very first media report where a journalist even asked the question of whether the president could cancel loans by executive order was a seminal Vice News interview with us in August 2019, before the pandemic. You may have signed our petition, change.org/cancel student loans. That was really the thing that launched the whole concept into the public conversation. And we should be thrilled that here we are talking about student loan cancellation by executive order. But ladies and gentlemen, we're not. And the most important thing that I'll tell you tonight is no matter what you want to see happen with your own student loans, whether you want them canceled, whether you want to make it through one of the income-driven repayment programs, whether you want some kind of a fair negotiated settlement, whatever you want with your student loans, it's not going to happen until and unless we get the constitutionally enshrined leverage of bankruptcy rights returned. And I can talk about that a little later. But for right now, I have a couple of announcements. We have a number of interview requests going on right now. So if you live in Georgia, in Washington, D.C., or Maryland, or in Arizona, and if you're willing to be interviewed, let me know. Send me an email, alan@studentloanjustice.org, ALAN @studentloanjustice.org. And tell me a little bit about your loan situation and so forth, and I will forward it along. These are for currently happening news stories across the country. Second announcement, and I hate to lead with this, guys, but we need donations at the moment, quite critically. We survive only on very nominal financial support from normal people in the form of personal gifts. We don't do deals with the student loan industry. We don't sell our members out. We don't make money on the side. We don't try and rope people into loan counseling or loan rehabilitation or any of those other predatory, disgusting things that we could, and we could make a ton of money like many of the other groups are doing. We don't do that. We won't do that. We have integrity on this group. And so in any event, I hope that you'll help. The last I checked, we needed around 86 people to donate $10. So that's $860 in total for this week. It's a very expensive week for us, ladies and gentlemen. So if you can help, and if you appreciate all that this group has done, all that this group is doing, and most importantly, all that this group is poised to get done, please just help. You know, we've got over 1 million members on this group, at least on paper. You wouldn't think it would be a difficult thing for us to raise money, but alas, it is, and it always has been. So please just make it easier on us if you would. You can go to the donate link right there, and please just, so I can shut up about it. Thank you. So, okay, guys, here's the lay of the land. I guess I kind of have to talk about this because it's at the top of the news. The debt ceiling negotiation is going through, and as a part of the debt ceiling negotiation in order to raise the federal borrowing cap, Joe Biden has agreed to Republicans' demands that the student loan, the federal student loan program, the payments be turned back on. Now, this is all just, I'm sorry, it's all theater. It's all political theater, ladies and gentlemen. You know, the last Biden announcement was that the loans were going to be turned back on, absolutely, within 60 days of June 30th, which is typically the latest date when the Supreme Court returns their verdicts on the cases that came through over the spring. And if you look at the Department of Education announcement, indeed, they say we are absolutely going to turn these loans back on 60 days after June 30th. Well, if you look at the bill that's going through Congress right now, I think the Senate just passed it. It contains the exact same language. The loans are to be turned back. Repayment is to resume within 60 days of June 30th. And so the only thing that this thing today accomplished was that, and we're a fiercely nonpartisan group, by the way. We hate the Democrats, hate the Republicans in different ways, but that's, and I will talk about that in a minute. But the only thing that this thing today accomplished was the Republicans are now taking all of the credit for turning these loans back on. Like, that makes absolutely zero political sense. So, and if you're new to the group, you need to know, this is not a partisan issue. Over half of all student loan borrowers are either Republican or independent. The worst hurt states, they aren't coastal states like Massachusetts or California or Washington or Oregon. No. The worst hurt states is the entire South. North and South Carolina, Georgia is the worst. Florida is terrible. Texas is horrible. Alabama, Arkansas, you name it. It's the entire South. 40% of student loan borrowers never graduated. 100% of student loan borrowers were proven to be financially needy as a precondition for getting the loans. We are not a bunch of liberal snowflakes, guys. And as hard as the mainstream media and both parties, I think it's a uniparty thing, guys, are trying to make us think this is a blue versus red issue, I have to question aloud what is actually going on here. Now, I am not a conspiracy theorist, guys. I'd never make claims that I don't have very solid evidence to point to that can prove what that claim is. But I can't believe that the Republicans are that stupid. It just makes no sense to me. And if you look at the large numbers, there it is this. There are 55 million student loan borrowers and cosigners in the country, private and federal. 85% of these people, like maybe even closer to 90% now, but certainly 85% as of a couple of years ago, were never going to be able to repay their student loans. So 85% of all student loan borrowers were losing sleep over their student loans. And as I said, more than half of these people are either Republican or independent. I kid you not. So we're talking about 43, 44 million distressed student loan borrowers in the country. And these people vote. So it just makes no sense to me why the Republicans are very happily shoving their finger in the eyeballs of distressed student loan borrowers. I mean, look at recent elections. Look at the midterm. What happened to the red wave? What happened to the red wave was student loans. You look at states like Georgia, Nevada, Michigan, Pennsylvania. These states are all sinking. They are all buried in federal, mostly federal student loan debt. So something else is going on here, guys. There, like and I'm open to your questions or comments, editorial opinions or otherwise on this question. But what is so important about this lending scam, and it is a scam, make no mistake, these loans are unconscionable and unconstitutional. It's a scam. In fact, the very first critical book ever written on the student loan topic was this book right here with Beacon Press, The Student Loan Scam. I wrote this book in 2008-9. The book is more relevant today than it was the day that I wrote it. Anyways, I never plug my book, but I probably should more often. So what is going on? What is so important about this lending scam that the Republicans are willing to give away huge a huge swath of their own base in elections for it. Like, I don't know how long this can last, ladies and gentlemen, but if the Republicans are like suicidal or something, then they're doing a heck of a job of putting themselves completely out of the game. And the problem is only getting worse. Make no mistake. So I can't understand what is going on with the Republicans. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts. But ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to tell you that this is a uniparty thing. This is both parties colluding. And on the Democratic side, let me just say, and we've been living and breathing this issue for 18 years, guys. I don't bullshit. I don't have any secret angle that I'm trying to sneak over on people. I don't have any secret handshake deals with industry, nothing like that. I'm just an honest guy. I'm a defaulted student loan borrower, by the way, and I have been for 20 years now. The Democrats blatantly betrayed us last session. The Democrats, the DNC, had it in their party platform to return bankruptcy protections to student loans. That is the core of this problem, ladies and gentlemen. Until we get the threat of the leverage of bankruptcy returned, we'll be begging this president or the next president forever to cancel loans, to reform the program, to make things work. And what we'll get is this bullshit that we've already seen over the past, I don't know, I would say over the past 6 years. You know, we've seen Donald Trump and what he was going to do when he had control of the House and the Senate. He was a disaster. He didn't really hurt things so much, but he certainly didn't help things. He was a disaster. He sold out to the student loan swamp. And then most recently we saw Joe Biden with 2 years in office having control of the Senate and the Congress. And did Joe Biden solve this problem? Fuck no. Joe Biden did, for all intents and purposes, nothing. You know, they will point to the $66 billion that they canceled, but guys, during a 2.5 year period, $250 billion in interest alone is typically added onto our backs in student loan debt, interest alone. So Joe Biden can cancel $66 billion every 2.5 years forever. And the student loan monstrosity will still grow by $75 billion a year. It doesn't solve the problem. And make no mistake, guys, this loan cancellation that he rolled out just before the election last year, it was designed to fail. Biden never wanted to cancel loans. He promised he was going to cancel loans right before the election for president in 2020. And then right after he got elected, he goes, oh, no, I'm not doing that. Oh, no, not by executive order. No. And most importantly about the Democrats, ladies and gentlemen, we saw people on the payroll to the DNC go out of their way to kill the push for the return of bankruptcy rights to student loans last session. And that I can prove. So I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry to have to report that neither party is fighting for us. The Republicans are very happy to be the bad guy, apparently. But the Democrats are fighting against us as well. It's just the rhetoric is different. So, guys, we have no party. Student loan borrowers have no party that they can trust. If it makes you feel psychologically maybe better to vote for the Democrats, well, more power to you guys. But the proof is in the pudding. And the verdict is in. And the Democrats betrayed us massively last session. They had a great bill. They could have returned bankruptcy to student loans like that. It would have been bipartisan. And they failed us. So, I don't know what to say, guys. We have no party. Not the D's, not the R's. The entire uniparty is against us. And if you look at the Democratic liberal elites, you don't see them calling for bankruptcy rights. In fact, if you look at any of the other student loan advocacy groups in this universe, you don't see them saying anything about bankruptcy. If anything, you see them throw cold water on returning bankruptcy rights to student loans. And let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, we've been doing this for 18 long years now. If bankruptcy rights had been returned to these loans as they exist for all other loans, as they were called for in the Constitution by the founding fathers 250 years ago. If bankruptcy rights had been restored, say in 2006, when we started student loan justice, there would be no student loan problem in this country today. The price of college would be a small fraction of what it is today. People would not be borrowing $100 billion a year for college. This problem would be solved. And the more time goes on and the more this lending system, which at this point is in catastrophic failure, the longer this goes on, the more obvious it is that bankruptcy rights need to be returned. You know, we've seen the bad guys, including the liberal elites, foist one cancellation gimmick after another on us as a cheap substitute for returning the constitutional bankruptcy rights that should have never been taken away. Now, I know a lot of you out there are going, yeah, but I don't want to file for bankruptcy. I just want my loans canceled. Duh! Nobody wants to file for bankruptcy. Bankruptcy sucks. That's the whole point. Bankruptcy is terrible. But you're totally missing the point. Having the threat, the leverage of bankruptcy back on our side, whether you would ever or never file. That's what's important. And until we have that little toothpick of power of bankruptcy on our side, we're going to be conquered and enslaved by this debt, ladies and gentlemen. That is the most important thing I will tell you tonight. So whatever this current nonsense debate turns out, it doesn't matter, guys. The loans were going to be turned back on anyways. The question that I beg you to ask yourself right now is, the loans, by all appearances, are going to be turned back on 60 days after June 30th. So what is that? July, August. So September 1st, the loans will be turned back on. You need to ask yourself, do you want to face that reality naked and afraid and vulnerable and without at least the leverage of having standard bankruptcy protections as they exist for all other loans on your side? Do you not at least want that little toothpick of power? Or would you rather the loans be turned back on and we continue to be naked, afraid, vulnerable, and like fish in a barrel for the student loan collection industry? You know, the student loan collection industry is hungry. Their number one goal, their wet dream, their fantasy, their golden unicorn is to see these loans turned back on and for bankruptcy rights to remain gone from the loans. That gives them a license to steal. And quite frankly, shame on the other groups out there who are calling for a mass default, but all of a sudden becoming mysteriously and suspiciously silent on bankruptcy. That's exactly what the debt collection industry wants. And that's exactly what groups like the Debt Collective are arguing for. Shame on them. Massively irresponsible. So anyways, I'm looking for your questions, comments. And, you know, I could talk about other groups as well. Student debt crisis is straight up corrupted, and they always have been. They're looking to make money off of distressed student loan borrowers. You go onto that group, and you're going to be hounded by debt coaches and student loan lawyers. All these people are trying to get you to consolidate your loans. They're trying to get you to rehabilitate your loans. And they make a massive fee, or at least a massive fee is made for those consolidations, for those rehabilitations. And who's getting that money? I don't know. I bet I can imagine, I can guess where that money's going. You know, imagine you rehabilitate a $100,000 defaulted loan. There's a 16% commission that gets paid to whoever gets you to do that. $16,000. So, yeah, if there was another group out there that I could trust, I would join that group, and I wouldn't be running student loan justice as we are. So, you heard it here first. But yeah, don't don't be enamored, or I should say, don't be distracted by all the bullshit, all the noise in the media going out there. The media is 99% against us. The media is nothing but a cheap propaganda engine at this point. We get lucky in the media from time to time. You know, we've been featured on Fox News and the New York Times and Wall Street Journal, and we were featured in a documentary over Christmas on MSNBC. You know, we have success with the media, but dudes, don't be stupid. We can't count on the media. The media is 95%, if not more, corrupted. And they are doing propaganda for the Department of Education, for the lenders, for the service, for the collection industry, which is who are sharpening their knives as we speak to turn your ass into a feast. Just be smarter than that, please. If you would, please. I'd appreciate it. It all comes down to bankruptcy, guys. Bankruptcy isn't sexy. It isn't pleasant. Nobody wants to do it. But it is the number one thing that we have to get returned if we're to have any hope at all of not being completely wrecked for the rest of our lives by these loans. I'm doing this for 18 years, guys. I'm done. I'm ready to be done. The lending system has now catastrophically failed. The loans will not be paid. Whenever they turn these loans back on, 80, if not 85% of the people, the borrowers, you and me, are not going to pay. And we shouldn't. In my humble opinion, 100% of all borrowers should never pay another dime into this nationally threatening federal lending beast. Don't feed the beast. It's not good for you. It's not good for anybody. If you ever do pay another dime, you're going to be in the small minority of all borrowers. The lending system is finished, guys. The only question is if we get a clean, quick, good ending to this loan abomination, or whether we get completely trashed and torn apart by the collection industry, the servicers, the Department of Education, under this tyrannically predatory lending beast. Think about that very seriously. You know, I tell everybody to bulletproof themselves. More than anything, if you care about solving this problem, and these are your loans, and this is your problem, and it is your livelihood that's on the chopping block here, you will fight with us as hard as you possibly can to get the constitutionally enshrined right of bankruptcy returned to these loans, whether you would ever or never file. Please be smart. Be just slightly smart. Think about this for 2 seconds. Think about what we've seen over the past 3 years, all this nonsense about cancellation, only to wind up with a $10,000 gimmick that was frankly probably never even meant to succeed. And even if it does succeed, guys, they're going to make back that $10,000 in interest and fees and penalties in no time. Just please be smarter. So I'm looking for your comments. Oh, we have 46 comments. There's no way I'm going to be able to get to them all tonight, but I appreciate them all. Alan Bodenheimer's with us tonight. Alan Bodenheimer says, "Revolution, Alan. You know, I don't like to talk about revolutions and stuff like that, but I will just say that this sort of injustice is exactly the sort of things that revolutions are made of. The founding fathers, they themselves, were wrecked under debt, under predatory debt to the king, to the king's friends, to British banks and merchants. And when the founding fathers declared independence, that was more a statement of financial independence, debt independence. That was more a statement of the abolition of debt to the old world than it was almost anything else. You know, George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Robert Morris, many of the founders were being absolutely wrecked under debt to the king. And when they ratified the Constitution in 1789, and you look at the very top of congressional powers enumerated, near the very top of that list, ahead of the power to raise an army and declare war, is the call for uniform bankruptcy laws, aka uniform bankruptcy rights. Now, I don't care how you define that term, uniform. Student loan borrowers are not treated uniformly vis-a-vis other borrowers in bankruptcy court. student loan borrowers are not afforded equal protection under the bankruptcy laws. They are not. So this is exactly the sort of disgusting nonsense that the founding fathers wished to avoid. So Ann Cooper says, Alan, I think both the R's and the D's care more about campaign donations than votes. You know, I can't speak for them. All I can do is point out just the complete, utter nonsensicality of everything that I see happening in Congress, both for the D's and for the R's. It's like both parties is doing everything they can possibly do to betray us. One of them loudly, one of them quietly. What is so important about this ridiculous, predatory, government, hugely profitable government lending program? And the government doesn't make a profit on anything, guys. Why is it so important to both parties that the taxpayer make this disgusting, predatory profit off of the backs of 45 million citizens for the simple act of going to college, getting educated? It makes zero sense. And remember, in 1965, when the Higher Education Act was signed, President LBJ declared that the loans would be free of interest. So whatever, guys. I'm sorry to have to report that neither party holds anything for us. The rhetoric with both parties is different, but guys, this is just nonsense. Alan Bodenheimer correctly says Republicans seem a little worse. Yeah, the rhetoric coming from the Republicans is heinous. It's disgusting. And you know, the rational middle ground on all of this is bankruptcy, guys. I can point you to any number of conservative writers, conservative economists, Republican members of Congress even, who agree that bankruptcy rights must be returned to student loans. Similarly, as I pointed out earlier, the DNC has it in their very party platform to return bankruptcy protections to student loans. There is no argument against returning bankruptcy rights to student loans, but there is a massive disconnect between the public conversation and the arguments that are being put forth publicly and the reality on the ground. And like I said, it's a game, dudes, where they keep throwing these shiny balloons in our faces, these shiny loan cancellation gimmicks in our faces to get us to not talk about bankruptcy. It's disgusting. And I blame both parties, even people like Elizabeth Warren, who's for goodness sake, taught bankruptcy law at Harvard. I kid you not. We have a long history with Senator Warren back to when she was a professor at Harvard. And even Elizabeth Warren went suspiciously silent on the bankruptcy issue, particularly as it relates to our bill S-2598 in the Senate last session. She literally refused to say whether she supported the bill. And on the day that our House companion bill was supposed to have its hearing in the House, Senator Elizabeth Warren crashed that party with her own press conference, talking about her own bankruptcy bill that she hadn't even introduced yet, was far broader than student loans, had no chance of passing even in a Democratic Congress last session. And lo and behold, they canceled the hearing within an hour of that press conference for our bankruptcy bill in the House. So I got to tell the truth, guys. That's all I've ever done. That's all I ever will do. And I can tell you that whatever you see on the TV, whatever the optics are, both parties are screwing us. Hey, Jackie Abron from Texas says, Biden and Longenecker, please watch Lone Wolves movie. Yes, agreed. Lone Wolves movie is the documentary that we were recently featured in on the Peacock Network. Google it. Hopefully you can find it. Joe Biden, he deserves more credit than any living, serving politician in this country for the student loan catastrophe. As a junior senator in the 70s, he was a surprisingly key guy in writing the first legislation that initially restricted bankruptcy rights for student loans. So, okay, guys, I'm going to go through a few more of your comments as I can. Please bear with me here, but I think I'm going to wrap it here in about 5 minutes. Let me just apologize in advance to all the comments I'm not going to be able to get to. I always look at the comments after the fact, though. So if you're watching this post live on Twitter, Facebook, or YouTube, by all means, raise your question, comments, editorial opinions, or otherwise, I'll very happily respond to them. So I'm just waiting for the comments to appear now. While I'm waiting, let me just say, please donate, dudes. Please, would you please, so I can shut up about it. Things are getting kind of serious here. We've got a utility bill staring us in the face, and we've got an email bill coming up for $300. My world is hard, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you understand. So, maybe from the beginning, Alan Bodenheimer says GFW or GFY. I'm not going to say it verbatim. I think I've probably said the F-bomb tonight too many times. Alan Bodenheimer says, we will survive, Alan Collins. Yes. And ladies and gentlemen, let's just be clear here. We got this. We, the people, are way stronger than the sharks and the parasites and the fakes and the lawyers and the politicians in Washington, D.C. and on Wall Street. We own this lending system. Student loans are essentially one big national joke at this point. The stakes are high, make no mistake, but guys, we've got the Constitution on our side, we've got the founders on our side. We should have at least 38 million other people on our side. And when you tell them about this group, that will happen. We don't have an advertising budget, guys. We don't have any of that. All we have are normal people, and that really is all that we need, like you and me and Alan and Ann Cooper. Alan also says psycho sociopaths. Yeah, right. We deal with sociopaths on Twitter all the time. These people have just no soul. They are just, maybe they're bots. I'm sure at least half of them are probably paid shills, but they're on a mission and they have sold out their humanity. Hey, Evelyn Rose with us tonight. She says, why don't we all protest at the White House with megaphones and crowds saying no bankruptcy, no peace? I love the idea, Evelyn. We have protested in Washington, D.C. many dozens of times. We've protested in Manhattan probably a dozen times, including Trump Tower and outside of Fox News. We love that stuff, Evelyn. And this summer, we're just planning our sort of summer tour. We're going to hit Iowa, South Carolina, hopefully Texas, Ohio, hopefully California, Arizona. But I'm realistic, and this is not an issue where we're just not going to get 1 million people to show up. We're just not going to be a 1 million man march. The most powerful things that we can do are pretty much where we sit from. Like traveling to Washington, D.C. is very expensive. I lived in D.C. for 3 years, so it was a little easier for me, but it's very hard to pull those kinds of things together. We are far more powerful and effective fighting every single day from where we sit. You know, love or hate Twitter. Twitter's powerful, guys. And by the way, the most important thing I'll tell any of you as far as what you can do, go to our website. Look at our daily actions. We do daily actions almost every day. They're quick. They're easy. They're fun. They're very timely. They're very well thought out, well crafted. Go to our website. Get into the habit of doing our daily actions every day. You know, as I said, we've got like 1.4 plus million people on this group, at least on paper. If even 10% of those people were doing our daily actions, we would overwhelm everyone that we target. We would melt the phone banks in Washington, D.C. We would completely wreck Twitter and Facebook, if that's what we want to do. You have no idea how strong we can, should, and I would say must be. You know, time is getting critical, guys. These loans are getting turned on in a few months. And what we do now could make all the difference. Ann Cooper says the economy will just go downhill faster and more lives will be ruined. You know, I think people are smart, and I don't think much will change. I think when they turn the loans back on, it's going to be like click, 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 click. It's not going to happen, guys. 85, maybe even 90%. That may be a little high. But my best guess is 80, 85% of all borrowers are not going to resume paying. Before the pandemic, 58.9%. So nearly 2/3 of all borrowers had stopped paying on their federal student loans. So if nearly 2/3 of everyone had stopped paying before the pandemic, what do you think? What do you think it's going to be when they turn these loans back on? Inflation is sucking $500 a month out of us. The average student loan payment was like $400 a month. So it just ain't going to happen. And more than that, people, I hope, are just done. They're done. And so if that's you, and I think it probably is, you came to the right place. This is a fight. Make no mistake. We have got to fight, ladies and gentlemen. And it all starts with you. No, like Ann and Alan and Evelyn, they can't fight your battle for you. The most important thing that we've learned over the years is that when you think someone else is going to fight your battle for you, it never happens. So, and if you don't have any intentions of fighting this battle with us, then please just get the fuck off of this group. Pardon my French, but we don't want you here. This group is a working, fighting group, and it's fun to fight this fight, and it feels good. It's cathartic to fight this fight, and we need you in this fight, and the country needs you in this fight. And there's a lot riding on this, guys. I mean, if they can do to other loans what they've done to student loans, they will. And John Adams said himself, there are two ways to conquer and enslave a country. One is by the sword, the other is by debt. And we are looking down that gun barrel. You know, this student loan thing is the camel's nose under the tent. So it's way more important than you might think. So, okay, guys, I'm sorry. I can't get through all your comments, but spread the word about this group. Tell everyone you know. We're it. If there was another group actually fighting this fight the way it needed to be fought, I would join that group. That group is us. So tell a friend, do everything you can think of. Do way more than our daily actions. But at least do our daily actions, if you would. And let me just dial that in for you just so you can, just to be absolutely sure. There's our daily actions right there. Do a couple weeks worth. Do a month's worth of our daily actions if you've never done a daily action before. It's fun. It's cathartic. It helps. It's patriotic. It's the right thing to do. We need you. So, okay, guys, I've gone on way too long tonight. I apologize for that. I'll be back tomorrow. I'll leave it there at that. Good luck. Godspeed. Do our daily actions. And God bless everyone. See you tomorrow.